Imagine the roar of engines cutting through the crisp German sky in 1944. A squadron of battle-hardened Luftwaffe aces, men like Erich Hartmann with hundreds of kills under their belts, circle their airfield after a grueling dogfight. They're laughing over the radio about those American P-51 Mustangs they've heard about, short-range toys that can't touch them deep in the fatherland. But then, shadows flicker overhead. Dozens of sleek silver fighters dive in, guns blazing. Fuel gauges hit empty, props sputter, and panic sets in. How did they get here? Why won't they leave? Stick around, because this is the story of how the mighty Luftwaffe got outranged, outsmarted, and outlasted, right over their own turf. World War II's air war was a brutal chess game played at 30,000 feet, where fuel was king and range was the ultimate weapon. Early on, the German Luftwaffe ruled the skies. Pilots in their Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf Fw-190s racked up victories like it was nothing. They had experience from the Spanish Civil War, the Blitz over Britain, and the Eastern Front. Guys like Adolf Galland and Werner Mulders became legends, downing Allied planes left and right. But by 1943, the tide was turning. American bombers, those big B-17 flying fortresses, started pounding German factories, cities, and supply lines day after day. The problem? Those bombers needed fighter escorts to survive the swarms of German interceptors. Without them, it was a turkey shoot for the Luftwaffe. Enter the P-51 Mustang. At first glance, it didn't look like much. Designed by North American Aviation for the British, it started with an Allison engine that choked at high altitudes. German pilots who spotted early models over France or the Channel just chuckled. That thing, it'll never reach Berlin, they'd say. They knew their own fighters had the edge in climb rate and armament, and Allied escorts like the P-47 Thunderbolt or Spitfire could only go so far before turning back for home, low on gas. That left the bombers naked and vulnerable deep inside Germany. Luftwaffe aces feasted on them, waiting until the fighters peeled off, then pouncing like wolves on a herd. But here's where it gets interesting. What if I told you a simple tweak turned that laughed-at pony into a thoroughbred predator? The British swapped in the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same powerhouse that made the Spitfire a beast. Suddenly, the P-51 could cruise at over 440 miles per hour, climb like a rocket, and, most crucially, fly for up to 2,000 miles with drop tanks. That's 7 or 8 hours in the air. Imagine being a German pilot, thinking you're safe once you cross the Rhine, only to look up and see those Mustangs still glued to your tail. If you're hooked on these epic twists in history, smash that like button right now and subscribe to Battleship Tales. We dive deep into the battles that shaped our world, just like this one. As the 8th Air Force ramped up its daylight raids, the P-51 started showing up in numbers. Late 1943, over Schweinfurt, where ball bearing factories were getting hammered. German aces like Hermann Graf scrambled to intercept, expecting the usual, hit the bombers hard after the escorts bail. But nope. The Mustangs stuck around, weaving through flak and foes, their .50 caliber machine guns spitting fire. Graf, with over 200 kills, later admitted the shock. Those Americans weren't leaving. They followed the Luftwaffe pilots all the way back, circling airfields like vultures. Fuel running low. You're a sitting duck. One ace recalled trying to land his Fw-190, engine coughing on fumes, when a P-51 strafed the runway. Chaos erupted, planes flipping, pilots bailing out over friendly soil they thought was safe. Picture this cinematic scene. It's March 1944, Operation Argument, also known as Big Week. Waves of B-17s and B-24s thunder toward aircraft plants in Leipzig and Brunswick. Luftwaffe controllers vector in their best, aces from Jägerschwader 1 and 11, men who'd mocked the Mustang specs in briefings. Range? Ha, they'll turn back at the border, they said. But as the bombers press on, the P-51s from groups like the 354th Fighter Group stay locked in. Dogfights erupt at 25,000 feet, tracers arcing like fireworks. A German pilot in his Bf-109 banks hard, evades one Mustang, only to find another on his 6. He glances at his fuel. Critical. Home base is close, but those Yankees are following. What happens next will make you question everything about aerial warfare. Down on the ground, German flak gunners watch in disbelief as American fighters loiter overhead, picking off landing planes. One infamous day over Poltava or maybe Berlin itself, accounts vary, but the terror was real. Erich Hartmann, the blonde knight with 352 confirmed kills, often pushed his luck on fuel to rack up scores. But even he got caught once, belly landing after debris from a kill fouled his engine. Imagine Hartmann's squadron returning from intercepting a raid, props windmilling on empty tanks, and suddenly P-51s from the 357th pounce. Pilots eject or crash land amid their own anti-aircraft fire. The Mustang's range wasn't just a number, it was psychological warfare. It broke the Luftwaffe's spirit, forcing them to conserve fuel, fly less aggressively. By mid-1944, the tables had fully turned. The P-51D model, with its bubble canopy and extra guns, became the Luftwaffe's nightmare. Aces like Johannes Steinhoff, who led JG-77, wrote in his memoirs about the frustration. They'd launch, engage, but couldn't shake the escorts. Returning home, low on gas, they'd see Mustangs orbiting their fields, waiting to strafe. One story stands out. Over an airfield in Romania or Hungary, Hartmann's turf, an entire staffel got ambushed. Planes queuing to land, vulnerable as can be, engines starving for fuel. The P-51s dove in, 0.50 calories ripping through fuselages. Survivors bailed out, parachutes blooming like dandelions, only to land amid the wreckage of their comrades. Think about the human side. These German aces weren't villains in capes. They were young men, often in their 20s, fighting for their homeland. Take Gunther Rall, third highest scorer with 275 kills. He survived a thumb shot off in combat, but later reflected on the Mustang's impact. "It changed everything," he said post-war. The range meant no sanctuary. Pilots started carrying extra fuel, but that weighed them down, dulled performance. Morale plummeted. Why fight when the enemy can chase you to your doorstep? And the Americans. Pilots like Chuck Yeager or Don Gentile became aces themselves, racking up kills over enemy territory. Gentile's Shangri-La Mustang downed 21 in the air, proving the point. As D-Day approached, the P-51s dominated. They strafed trains, hunted V-1 sites, and covered the invasion beaches. But back over Germany, the fuel drama peaked. In one raid on oil refineries at Ploiești, Romanian fields guarded by elite Luftwaffe units, Mustangs arrived unannounced. German pilots, after scrambling, found themselves bingo fuel, military slang for empty, right as the Yanks circled. Aces tried tricks, gliding in, cutting engines early. But too often, it ended in flames. What secret upgrade gave the P-51 that edge? We'll get to that, but first, if this storytelling has you gripped, consider subscribing to Battleship Tales for more untold war sagas. It keeps the channel flying high. Diving deeper, the Merlin engine was key, but drop tanks were the game changer. Those external fuel pods, made of paper or metal, extended range from 1,000 to over 2,000 miles. Pilots jettisoned them when empty, lightening up for combat. Germans had similar tech, but not the production scale. Their jets like the Me-262 were fast but guzzled fuel, limited to short hops. Meanwhile, P-51s roamed free. A vivid example. The 4th Fighter Group, former Eagle Squadron Brits turned Yanks, over Berlin in March 1944. Hubert Zemke's Wolf Pack tangled with JG-26. German aces like Heinz Nock mocked the little friends at first, but as fuel needles dropped, mockery turned to dread. Nock himself got shot down later, surviving by miracle. Fast forward to late 44, the Battle of the Bulge. Fog grounded most, but when skies cleared, P-51s pounced on German airfields. Operation Bodenplatte, Hitler's last-ditch air offensive on New Year's Day 1945, saw Luftwaffe planes launch at dawn. They hit Allied fields but returned low on fuel, only to find Mustangs waiting. Hundreds of German aircraft destroyed on the ground or in vulnerable landings. Aces like Gerhard Barkhorn, with 301 kills, barely escaped. Barkhorn later said the constant pressure cracked even the best. The emotional toll, friends lost not in glorious combat, but scrambling for a runway with empty tanks. Now, picture the cockpit view. A Luftwaffe pilot, sweat beading under his leather helmet, scans the horizon. Bombers stream ahead, but those specks, Mustangs, don't peel away. Radio crackles. Army fighters still with them. Heart sinks. Engage. Risk fuel for the return? Many chose to fight, only to limp home, props feathering. Over fields like Tempelhof or Munich, P-51s from the 55th or 78th groups orbited, picking targets. One ace, anonymous in reports, radioed, "Out of fuel, Mustangs above." Ground crews watched helplessly as heroes fell. The statistics tell the tale. In 1943, bomber losses were 20 to 30% per mission. By 44, with P-51 escorts, down to 1 to 2%. Luftwaffe lost over 4,000 fighters in 44 alone, many to fuel-starved ambushes. Aces survived by skill, but rookies? Cannon fodder. The Mustang didn't just win dogfights, it won the attrition war. Germans laughed at its range, until it haunted their nightmares. As we wrap this up, think about the what-ifs. What if the Luftwaffe had matched that range earlier? Could the air war have dragged on? It's questions like these that keep history alive. If this story fired you up, drop a comment below. Who's your favorite World War II ace, and why? Share this with a history buff friend. It might spark a debate. And hey, for more gripping tales from the front lines, subscribe to Battleship Tales if you haven't already. Until next time, keep wondering, what other secrets of the skies are out there waiting to be uncovered?